wonder why fund managers can't beat the S&P 500? Because they're sheep. And sheep get slaughtered.
The numbers told the story, they always do.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Because all we care about is getting fucking rich. You connect points I don't even know to look for.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information.
Public's out there throwing darts at a board sport. I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things.
Welcome, Karma Clan, to this edition of the Sports Trading Desk. I'm your host, Brett Matthew. My usual co-hosts, Corey Larson, Zach James, out of pocket this week. So it'll be just me breaking down week 6, looking ahead to week 7, providing some insights, some initial leans, and recapping where we stand from a performance perspective vis-a-vis our BetKarma Sportfolios. So what were our picks in week 6? How did we perform? How are we performing on a year-to-date basis versus the broader market, our benchmark of the Super Contest top 5 consensus picks, and our broader competitors? That's what we really like to see, not just total performance. How are we performing on a standalone basis, but also relative performance, just to keep you all updated, being fully transparent, and ensuring that we continue to provide that accountability to our process and our performance. So looking back at week 6, following up on our strong week 5 of 4-1, following it up with another 4-1 performance. We went in to the Monday night games sitting at 4-0. Final game was regrettably the Cowboys. Total misfire, total mishandicap there. Was dead wrong. Had no chance. And so it was a bit of a downer to end the week, but we still finished strong. Finishing the week 4-1. Our benchmark, the Super Contest top 5 consensus picks, went 2-3. So a nice 2-game outperformance there. And on a year-to-date basis, we are sitting at 17-13, outperforming our benchmark by 2 games, with the Super Contest top 5 consensus at 15-15 on the season. So not a super strong start by any means. We've had a strong last 2 weeks to kind of catch up on some underperformance through weeks 3 and week 4. Let's look at our performance vis-a-vis some of our competitors. So pregame, sitting a half game above us right now, since they had a push. VSiN sitting at trailing us by a game. And then we have some of our other competitors like Right Angle Sports, Walter Football, outperforming us right now. So Right Angle starting the season hot, so 20-10, outperforming us by 3 games. Walter Football outperforming us by a game, sitting at 18-12. So there's definitely some catching up that we need to do. We're confident that we'll be able to do it. Like we've mentioned on previous podcasts, definitely some noise going on in the background. This provided a little bit of distraction, but no excuses. Just move forward. You don't care about that. So just care about getting the wins, and that's all we care about. So, we're optimistic that we'll be able to continue to provide broader outperformance, continue to have positive performance nonetheless, at a very minimum, and looking forward to week 7. So just to recap then, week 6, the actual picks, again, finishing the week 4-1, we had Washington at +3, the Steelers -3, Niners +3, Bucks +1, and then of course the Cowboys +1 as well. And if you listened to our podcast last week, you heard us really pound the table on the Niners and the Bucks. That was a pick that we've had across various platforms and various exposures that we manage, that was slam dunk winners. We talked about even if they lost, this was a pure mispricing. And then the Steelers -3 wasn't I mean, the Steelers clearly won the game, dominated pretty much from start to finish. So we really liked that. It was more of a play against the Browns. We did upgrade the Steelers prior to this week meaningfully, especially Zach did in his power rankings. I already had the Steelers pretty high even before that. So that was a pretty much a slam dunk play, especially when the line moved to 3 from 3.5. And then Washington was a game that we had a little bit of division on. The game really could have went either way. In the end, the Giants had, a fluky defensive score. I mean, maybe not even that fluky, since Kyle Allen was kind of prone to fumbling. So Giants picked up a fumble from Kyle Allen, returned it for a touchdown. You got to have that priced into the handicap. And I think we did, that Kyle Allen could have, had the potential to have a turnover type day that ultimately ruined the pick. In fact, in my fantasy football team, I picked up the Giants defense and played them for that week, knowing that that could happen. But what's also priced into that handicap is Danny Dimes doing similar bonehead mistakes, which he also committed in this game, throwing a pick in the end zone that surely would have resulted in at least 3 points. So 3 points off the board there, a give back of 7. So, I mean, there were some mistakes. It was a sloppy football game. These aren't two great teams, the Giants and the Washington football team. So I think that's where the +3 kind of like felt like there was at least, some edge there, in that these teams are essentially even. There's really not much home field advantage. Game could have went in either way. We got the win. So those kind of things happen to kind of even themselves out. And we had some bad breaks this season as well. So kind of got one in our favor. So sitting 4-1, moving on to week 7. Let's just jump right into the spreads, get some initial leanings here. Again, solo podcast, so you're only going to get my view, my perspective, not much debate here. But we'll definitely be sure to have Corey on next week, and Zach will be coming back from Germany soon, so he'll be back live on the podcast to hear some of his thoughts as well, so you can look forward to that. So Thursday night, Giants, Eagles sitting -4. I think this opened up +6.5. We saw that 6.5. Corey was also quick to bring that to our attention. We executed, pulled the trigger, bet the +6.5, posted it in the BetKarma premium Discord for everyone's, for all subscribers, benefit there. And if you got that, that's, you're sitting pretty right now with 2.5 points of intrinsic line value right now. At -4, I don't see much edge. It's a Thursday night game. The Eagles are banged up. Giants are not great, but Giants are probably better than the market gives them credit for. And that's, I think, why you kind of saw the pressure on the price move lower quite quickly. And then, of course, Eagles injuries probably also playing into that calculation there. But at 4, not super attractive. If this line kind of balloons back up closer to 6.5, 7, don't think that's probably going to happen. But if so, then there's probably some value on the Giants. Danny Dimes has not had a great season. And if he can put in a legitimately solid performance, there's no doubt about it, the Giants can win this game straight up. No doubt about it. I mean, the Eagles are so banged up that makes the Giants look healthy. And so that might be kind of one of the key turning points here. Carson Wentz is doing his damnedest to keep his composure together and keep this team afloat and competitive. And he's doing a moderately admirable job given the resources he has. But he's also making not all of the great decisions. But the Eagles stay alive. They've been staying in games. They've been covering numbers when they're heavy underdogs, but that's not the case this week. Now they're back to being more than a field goal favorite. Not a great position to be betting the Eagles. but probably gonna pass at the current number. Wouldn't recommend really betting this game, especially on a Thursday. So way too much analysis there for a Thursday game that probably no one's going to bet. So let's move on. Browns at Bengals. Browns sitting -3. There's a lot of short spreads this week, a lot of field goal type games or less. And, Corey, Zach, and I were chatting offline about how a lot of our initial leanings here feel super square. And so that gives you some hesitation. I think looking at the board this week, we don't have a lot of great feelings around thinking that there's great value to be captured. We went into last week having a lot of conviction, feeling like there was a lot of mispriced risks in the market that we could capitalize on, and we did. This week, not so much. So we're going to try and be cautious and maybe leverage some alternative resources, maybe lean on some, other kind of factors in kind of driving our decision making, and maybe less some of our fundamental handicaps this week because we just don't see a lot of edge from that signal. So we might lean more into market signal, lean more into technical signal this week, but we'll see how that plays out. And this is a great game that kind of embodies that entire kind of approach this week, because we lean Browns -3 on the road versus a Bengals team that's been covering numbers, that has played competitive football for the most part over the course of the season. Browns are sloppy. And we talked about on last week's podcast, one of the reasons why we liked the Steelers was because, Browns coming off hot, 4-1, beating the Colts in a definitive fashion. But the team's still sloppy. And that really played itself out in the Steelers game. And Browns-Bengals is the second time they're meeting. They already played earlier this season. And that was also a competitive game. Relatively, it was within striking distance pretty much for the Bengals the entire game. They got a backdoor cover there. So I would say, we continue to lean Browns here, even in spite of all of that negative commentary about that would imply why you shouldn't. And we probably won't. But again, something we're going to have to kind of continue to think about. Looks like there's some pressure on this line to maybe move it to 3.5. And if it is to 3.5, does that push us to the Bengals? If it does, our view on the Browns is not very strong, which I think it isn't. So something we'll want to think about here. But again, betting the Browns minus a field goal on the road versus an offense that can put up points doesn't sound sharp. Cowboys, pick 'em on the road versus Washington. Washington's been bet here. We've bet on Washington a couple times this year. Everyone's butthurt off that Dallas bet, including us. Andy Dalton looked completely unprepared. It didn't look great in the very end of the Giants game when he came in. And, we're really disappointed in that pick too, because, again, we love doing these podcasts, especially when all of us are on, because it can really memorialize our thoughts and thinking and some of the macro and micro drivers around some of our, thought process, decision making, and what's kind of driving some of these bets. And in last week's podcast, we talk about how there's too many questions around the injuries, around Andy Dalton. Cowboys are poorly coached. They get down big. And is Andy Dalton going to have the capacity to bring this team back? And we said, this is a game you lay off. And we didn't take our own advice there. It really hurt us. But now, with so many having such bad tastes in their mouth about the Cowboys, Washington bettors feeling a little bit lucky, getting a nice win last week. Hey, we are these bettors in both these scenarios here right now. So it's hard to bet the Cowboys. It's very hard to bet the Cowboys, but could be the right side here. Again, I think the market still is discounting Kyle Allen too much. Again, not a great quarterback, but he's serviceable, and he can move the offense, even with some of these limited weapons. And the Cowboys defense still looks like it's being able to get picked apart, but they are getting healthier. So that's worth noting. And you'd think you'd get a bounce back spot here from the Cowboys. Another week of prep for Andy Dalton, coming off a miserable performance. Probably have to lean Cowboys here, but this just seems like a mess. Lions at Falcons. Falcons sitting at -2. I liked Falcons -3. Now we're getting Falcons -2. This happened last year with the Falcons, had a coaching change, had a philosophy changed, and that was the catalyst of when the Falcons flipped from being, 2-7 or whatever they were into stringing together, 5-6 covers in a row. We see that here. We see the change of philosophy, we see the coaching change, and we saw a dramatically, starkly different performance from the Falcons versus the Vikings. Now the Falcons are going home, less than a field goal favorite, versus the Lions, who put in a great, good performance versus the Jags on the defense. They did what they had to do. This seems like a good spot to bet the Falcons. In fact, this is the first time I'm actually seeing the market discount the Falcons, finally, as they put in a good performance. I think we talked about in past podcasts, Falcons just kept getting the benefit of the doubt, even though they kept blowing games, not covering numbers. The market still kept pricing the Falcons competitively. Now they're not. Now they're leaning out of the Falcons when it seems like a good time to lean into them. So I'm leaning Falcons on this one. This isn't a game that we've talked or debated about too extensively offline between Corey, Zach, and I, so I'm not sure how they feel about it. But I mean, at less than a field goal, you can't lean into the Lions here. I don't think they've performed consistent enough to get that benefit of the doubt. But, you don't want to fight the market necessarily too much. So I'm going to look at this move and I'm going to pause and say, is my fundamental handicap of this game off? Is there other factors I'm not considering? Something that we'll discuss moving forward. So certainly not making an allocation to that position right now, maybe in the future, but maybe not. But that's definitely at least my unilateral kind of view on the game at this point. Panthers +7 on the road versus the Saints. This is a tough one. Saints getting healthier, Saints coming off bye. All that's priced into this number. That cannot be the driving factor around your handicap, because every square better is going to be like, Michael Thomas coming back. Saints at home. Saints coming off bye week. Oh, there's this coaching matchup between Teddy Bridgewater. The Saints defense knows Teddy Bridgewater. Saints coaching staff knows Teddy Bridgewater. That's what makes this game 7. So what else do you have to get a lean or an edge here? I'd probably lean Saints here simply for the fact that I feel like we saw at least a crack in the Panthers' offensive scheme last week. Granted, they played a better defense than the Bears. I think the Saints' defense has not played well this year, but they have the capacity to play well. They still have the talent. And again, Saints have been notorious to start seasons off slow, clunky, underperforming. This year, it's dragged on a little bit deeper into the early part of the season. I think that's totally plausible to be consistent with how they have historically performed, given the broader contextual circumstances within which we're operating this year. No preseason, obviously all the things that all the teams had gone in, that the teams have encountered over the course of the offseason. So if the Saints are the type of team to start off slow, they were probably going to start off exceptionally slow this year. And even talking about them starting off slow, they're still been a good team relatively. They just haven't been covering big numbers. So I'll probably lean Saints here in this situation. Not a strong lean, but Panthers defense is also getting banged up. That's starting to catch up with them. And this could be, a nice spot for the Saints to win this game by 10, 2 touchdowns type range. But you want to be cautious still because Panthers, even last week, continue to play competitive football. They're pretty much in every game. So you don't necessarily just want to say, well, this is the time that they're not going to play competitive. You don't want to try to catch a falling knife. But I think there are some factors here to maybe imply that could be the case this week. Bills at the Jets, Bills minus 13. Probably still not enough, especially if Darnold's not playing, which I don't think he's going to be. Said it last week. Been saying it pretty much every week. You can't bet the Jets. You can't bet the Jets. You've got to see some spark from them before you can. You've got to see them play a competitive game where it comes down to the final 1 or 2 drives. You need to see that before you can even consider betting the Jets. So you can't bet the Jets here. Now, does that mean you go out and bet the Bills minus 13? I don't love it. It's a short week. It's a lot of points. Bills are still turnover heavy. They should have demolished the Jets in week 1. And they didn't. Bills do not put teams away. They let them hang around. So 13 seems still like a lot. They could be losing by 2 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns. And the Jets could still get a backdoor push. I don't love it. I don't know if the Bills want to really go out and send a statement versus the Jets. What statement are you really sending? Oh, you crushed the Jets. Bravo. The Dolphins just beat them by 24. Dolphins aren't being upgraded by anybody. Not off that performance on a standalone basis. I think Bills are probably looking past this game, if anything. Going to try and get in, get out, healthy, and with a win, and aren't going to necessarily try and win this game by 30. I could be wrong. Packers on the road versus Texans. Packers minus 3.5. Texans, a lot of bettors are butthurt about the Texans as well, including us, because we didn't have it in this portfolio, but in some of our contests, we had Texans plus 3.5. Total brutal loser, winning by a touchdown with 2 minutes less to go in that game. Let the Titans drive right down the field, get a touchdown, push into OT. They win the coin flip, drive right down the field, get another touchdown, win by 6. Yeah, yuck. In fact, in Circa right now, just as a quick segue, we had the Texans in our Circa pick. We're sitting 9-1 over the last 2 weeks, and in the quarterly contest in Circa. So we're sitting in a nice, sweet position for that quarterly prize if we can put in another great performance here in week 7. Sitting 9-1. That one loss is the Texans plus 3.5. Should be sitting 10-0. Should be sitting 10-0. So a lot of Texans bettors not eager to come back to the front desk and put some more cash down on Deshaun Watson and company. Packers coming off brutal performance versus the Bucs. Probably, they didn't play as bad as the score indicated. Things just didn't go their way, kind of spiraled out of control. I don't really know too many people downgrading the Packers meaningfully off that performance. But that was the first decent team, good defense that the Packers have played, and they struggled. The Texans are not a good defense. So maybe this is the type of game where the Packers have been performing the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season, just blowing out bad defenses and saying, hey, can you keep up with us? And most teams can't. Is that game? Or are the Packers going to go through a few clunky weeks here, coming off the bye, still, in a somewhat of an awkward position now, trying to regain that momentum, maybe doubting themselves a little bit. This is a game, again, we like Packers. We bet the Packers minus 3 in the aggressive portfolio, posted that into the BetKarma premium Discord. Now it's at 3.5. Even the 3, it doesn't feel great betting that. I don't think, this is not the type of game that you're betting on a long-term consistent basis over and over, and you're going to be a long-term winner. betting the Packers in this spot -3 on the road versus a capable offense. Not a way to move forward on a long-term basis and make money. It's tempting and probably still does look attractive. This seems like a game where the Packers probably win it by double digits or the Texans just win straight up, for sure. So a game that you're definitely going to have to still think about. Over-under on this is 57 right now. I think that might be the highest I've seen all season. Seahawks -3.5 at the Cards. Again, a super attractive road favorite right here. I mean, the Cardinals keep picking up wins. They're 4-2. Just blew the Cowboys out on Monday night in front of a lot of bettors that also bet the Cardinals. So they're sitting pretty, ready to probably bet the Cards again. I don't think this is a good spot for the Cardinals. I think they have outperformed their stats. I think the underlying fundamental drivers of this team are weaker than the market is pricing them right now. Seahawks coming off a bye. Maybe their defense can put in a somewhat good performance. They've played historically well on the road versus Cardinals, actually. In fact, the Seahawks have historically been struggling versus the Cardinals in Seattle the last couple of years and as big favorites. This is not the case. I'm going to lean the Seahawks here. Again, not providing you some really great, sharp advice that you probably couldn't figure out on your own at this point in time. And that's the kind of week this feels like. So you got to be careful because it seems like a super square week. Squares got crushed last week. Sharps won a lot of those games. We won a lot of those games. So this is an awkward week, no doubt. Niners +2 on the road versus the Patriots. We bet the Niners again last week. Thought that was a really great spot. Patriots put in a miserable performance versus the Broncos. Seems like Cam still has COVID. -2 seems a little short at home. Niners are getting healthier. Niners probably being underpriced. Patriots being overpriced. When this opened 3, really liked the Niners. In fact, I wish we would have bet it more aggressively. 2, not nearly as attractive. I probably still lean Niners in this position, but again, taking a step back, betting against the Patriots at home under a field goal, not a long-term winning strategy. So just need to be cognizant of that. Chiefs -9.5 on the road versus the Broncos. Broncos could not score versus the Patriots, even though they were able to take advantage of turnovers and move the ball. Could not capitalize in the red zone. I think they hit 5-6 field goals in that game, 0 touchdowns. Chiefs' game plan seems to be what we've talked about in earlier podcasts. Get in and out with the win. Try not to necessarily reveal a ton of creative plays or otherwise kind of open up your playbook in a game that you might not necessarily need to. They kind of are going with what the defense gives them. If the defense is going to try and stop the run, they'll beat you with the pass. If they want to try to beat the pass, they'll beat you with the run. Chiefs are going to be super tough to beat. I don't know if the Chiefs are going to be a great team to bet with big spreads this year as a consequence. So sitting at 9.5, if the Broncos defense can play, just keep the ball in front of them, and Drew Lock has a average game at least, and this isn't marred by turnovers, I think the Broncos can stay within 9.5. So hard to bet the Chiefs here, especially just with their overall macro strategic approach this year. They're not trying to blow teams out. So, and they've historically played competitive games at Denver over the last few years. I think this was the game Mahomes got hurt actually last year, and they did get some meaningful separation. But I don't think you can bet the Chiefs in this slot. Bucks at the Raiders. Raiders were sitting at +3 games off the board. Now I think some players may have contracted COVID, and that's kind of playing into the calculus here. This is another game. You can see it's a consistent pattern this week. We leaned Bucks -3. Road favorite. The clear better team. Again, not necessarily a sharp bet. But hey, there are some weeks where the squares mop up. Maybe this is that week, but it just seems too easy to lean these ways. So again, we want to be cautious, but that's our initial lean, at least. I personally don't love it. Steelers +1 at the Titans. This line's been getting kicked around. So I think the Titans were originally favorites to look ahead. Then it moved to Steelers -2 with a flood of money coming in betting the Steelers. Now it's moved back the other way. This seems like a more accurate price. I think, we leaned Steelers, but then the price got away from us, and betting a -1, -2 on the road versus a Titans team that, love them or hate them, I mean, they keep winning. They keep covering games. They are putting in workman-like performance. Tannehill is playing overall well. They're being coached well. They're making the right decisions. When the game is on the line, they are making the right plays and getting wins. And so sitting at 1, it's hard to get in front of that on the road. The Steelers looked great versus the Browns, but the Steelers have also put in not great performances versus, like I'm thinking about the Texans, for instance, games where they let teams hang around. The Steelers aren't, besides that Browns game, Steelers aren't coming in here and blowing the doors off people. So this is a game you want to be careful about. Steelers defense had been exposed in moments over the course of this season. I think the Titans can put points up on the board, but the Titans defense is also not very strong. In fact, this is over under at 50 right now. It seems maybe a little bit low. No meaningful lean at the current price. Jags at Chargers. Jags +7.5. I'm going to probably lean Jags here. This seems like a lot of points for the Chargers. Pricing the Chargers like they're just a clear and away good team right now. So we go back to week 1. Okay, week 1. Jaguars are priced like the worst team in the league, maybe priced as one of the worst teams in the last few years. And the Colts were sitting -8, closed -7. Now, that was on the road, sure, but what is the road home dichotomy really worth? ±1 point? So ±1 point. Chargers are sitting here 7.5, 8. Colts were 8 then. And the Colts were probably rated higher then than they are now. Jags were rated lower than they are now. I'm not rating the Chargers like I was the Colts week 1. And I'm not rating the Jags right now like we were rating the Jags week 1. Jags are not great. Jags also aren't the team that people started to upgrade them up over the first couple of weeks. And I think, our comments on the Jags have been pretty spot on. Is you're going to get good performances from the Jags because they have offensive talent and there's spotty talent on the defense from time to time. They're going to be able to score in select games. You're going to get good games from Minshew. You're going to get bad games from Minshew. You're going to get good Jags and bad Jags. So it's a really roll of the dice. But this is assuming that the Chargers are for sure going to play well. The Jags are going to sure perform poorly. Probably not a bad spot to bet the Jags here. Lastly, Bears on the road at the Rams. Bears +6. So moved off 5.5. Now it's moved to 6. At this spread, probably lean the Bears. I don't love the Bears. But if the Bears can get pressure on Goff, that is the most important variable every single time betting the Rams is, can you get pressure on Goff? If you can get pressure on Goff, then it's kind of a toss-up. And this really then now comes down to, can the Bears hang within this number if they can't get pressure? It's a question mark because the Bears did not put in a great performance versus the Panthers on the road. And the Panthers are a much worse defense than the Rams. And the Bears are also sitting at 5-1. but the market's not really giving them a ton of credit at 6. So there maybe is some value on the Bears. Probably not going to bet this game though. Not super attractive. Not super attractive. And that's probably where I'll leave that at 44. Looks low. Probably looks low. So that wraps up week 7, previewing week 7 and initial leans and thoughts and insights. Hopefully you've gotten a little bit of actionable feedback there. Can gather some intel around some of our initial leans. Again, our leans are square as F this week. So we'll see if that pays off. If that actually does kind of make its way into our portfolios this week. Again, we still have a couple of days here to really finalize our allocations, our thought process. Again, we're going to start to solicit some insights from some alternative signals, not just our fundamental signals. Going to probably lean more into market signals, technical signals, solicit advice from some of our other partners as well, to really be able to finalize what our ultimate decisions are going to look like this week. So with that wraps it up. Thanks for listening, and we'll check back in next week. And that's the closing bell, guys.